Hello. Hi guys. I realized I did the title wrong. How is everyone? It says 8-4, but I should have put 8-11. That's okay. I'm going to fix that right now. So while everyone gets settled in, I know I'm usually a little late. Hi, Jorge. Hello, Patricia. Yeah, we're going to just wait a few minutes because I just started. I'm a few minutes late, but unfortunately it put 8-4, so I think people got confused, but I did announce it. And my dog right now is going bonkers, so we will wait a few minutes. I'm not doing a long live today. It's only going to be about 45 minutes because I have a client right after, so that makes sense. Just fixing something. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I'm gonna I will screen through the live. I'm just changing something really quickly. But how is everyone? How's life? What's new? I'm great. Like, I'm really embodying states and feeling really confident about my life, about everything. So for me, things are wonderful. Yeah, just been more at peace with things. Not that not before, but you guys understand what I'm saying. So, what else can I help you with? Because I just looked at the live and it says 8-4 when it should have said 8-11. That's okay. Maybe people got confused by that. It is what it is. So talk to me. What do you need help with? What do you need clarification with? What do you feel like you're struggling with? Because everyone, when it comes to law of assumption, can you hear me talking? I was like watching the live here so I can like answer questions. I always have my laptop ready because yes, the iPad, well, I have an iPad set up. But I like watching them here because it's just easier to differentiate. But you'll notice I look down a lot. I need a better setup. There's a different program I can use, but that's another conversation for another day. So let's talk about embodying states because I feel like, hi Linda, I feel like that's not talked about enough. I feel like a lot of people think they know what embodying states are, but it's a whole other level of manifestation. It takes some time to get here, like, because you know what embodying states is, but until you really get it, then you get it, like it goes into your mind. Okay, so I turn the volume off on here so I can still see your guys' questions. That's the most important part to me. All right, hi, greetings from Lithuania. Oh my god, that's so far away. Thank you. I was so touched by you sharing how other people shifted realities and meet their beloved ones where they no longer have passed away. Can I expand more? Sure. I mean, so listen, you always manifest based off of your beliefs, 1000%. So it's not that you're meeting your loved ones, right? You're meeting them in a different reality. You're going to a reality where none of those bad things happen, where they didn't get cancer, where they didn't get in the accident, where X, right? Wherever this bad thing didn't happen. You're jumping to a different parallel reality, but you have to persist in that reality. Like, people don't understand, like, you can't be, let's say you lost a pet. We'll just say a pet, right? For just easier sake. Let's say you lost your pet because they got hit by a truck, which I would never wish on anyone. Like, I love my dog beyond belief, okay? Let's say your cat got hit by a truck, like ran out in the middle of the street and a truck accidentally hit it, right? You can't be going around telling everybody, you got to drop that story. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll start living in the end, but then they'll be like, oh, how are you dealing since your cat died? Oh, I'm okay. Which in the moment, it's okay to do that, right? But you have to catch yourself. I've noticed this with clients coming to me. Oh, what if somebody asks me about my mom that passed away, my father, or my brother, or whoever, right? Like whoever you're trying to revise. I think it's best to be like, I really don't want to talk about that right now. And then in your mind, just imagine like, oh, I'm so grateful my brother's at home. Like, it's really important we don't stay in the story, because then when you're trying to shift, if this story is more predominant, and you're continuously telling the old story, you're not going to see the new story show up in your reality. And you also have to have a belief that it's possible for you. You have to abandon those beliefs. So a lot of people will be like, oh, manifesting someone who's no longer passed away is impossible. No, it's not impossible. It's possible. We are in a limitless, quantumless world. And coaches that are telling you that that's not possible don't really realize how limitless we are. I know somebody asked me about this recently, and I didn't really want to go into it on a live. I am a little bit now, just so you understand like what's needed. So the first and foremost important thing is you have to believe it's possible, right? And then second of all, you need to change your beliefs around it. If you have beliefs that that is not irreversible and that that's impossible, you're going to have a hard time. And then the other thing is you have to drop the old story. So these are 3 components you need to do, right? Like you need to abandon the old story when it comes up, make sure you're living in the end of where they're here, changing your belief systems, creating a new self-concept that these things are possible for you, and just living in the end being that. And if it's showing up in your reality, being okay with it, not getting triggered right by it, and then just continually living in the end. That's the most important thing with guys. Here's the thing, there's no difference between manifesting a cup of coffee or jumping to a reality where someone is now here. It's the same thing, same concept. It just appears harder. It's more about changing your beliefs around this subject, right? Like manifesting a cup of coffee is normal and natural to us, and we have no resistance when it comes to manifesting a cup of coffee, but we might have resistance to manifesting someone who in another parallel reality passed, right? Versus being in a reality where they have not, where they're healthy and thriving. Your loved ones never go anywhere anyway. Like they're never really dead. Like everything's happening simultaneously, right? Like time is an illusion. It's just that time just happens in like, it seems to happen in sequence, but it's not. It's just happening in the moment. And then that's why you believe that to be true, but that's not true. Even if that happened in that moment, we can jump to another moment where it didn't happen. Does that make sense? Okay. Hi Linda, how are you? SP's back. Bit hot and cold, not conformed. I'm feeling like I'm working on my self-concept. Okay, so advice. So why, here's 2 things, right? So SP's being hot and cold. Generally, when things aren't showing up the way we want, we're wavering, right? We have one foot in one reality and one in another. The problem that most people struggle with, at least that I've seen with clients, with followers, with you, I mean, anybody, right? Like it doesn't matter. You don't have to necessarily be a client of mine. The thing that I've noticed everyone struggles with, and I used to struggle with this too, not as much, I would say not really anymore because I've changed my self-concept around this. But when you see something you don't like, you're like, oh, they haven't changed. When in reality, that could be your bridge. That could very well be leading you to the next thing. Or when you see something you don't like, you're like, that's not them, right? It's like, oh, that's them. That's the new them. That's not them. So if you're back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, then what's going to happen in your reality? Back and forth. You're going to get this not so great version of your SP. Sometimes they're going to act very into you and like they like you. Other times they may not answer the phone or blow you off, right? That's because you are back and forth. You've got like a mosh podge of the wrong person. And it's not that you're just back and forth in between the realities, or you have a person who's kind of in between, right? Like you said, hot and cold, a hot and cold version of them. That exists too, right? There's the perfect version of them, there's the hot and cold version of them, and then there's the bad version. I don't want to say the bad, the unideal version of them, because in our reality, nothing is really good or bad. I'm really trying not to use that word in my vocabulary when I speak to you guys or answer questions. So you need to really focus on just embodying the version of them that's with you, right? And then also changing your self-concept, adjusting your self-concept. There is no working on self-concept. And I mean, I get it, and I know where you're coming from with that. I feel like I'm working on my self-concept, old belief, story, advice. Okay, but you don't want to make it, here's the thing, if you say working on, trying to, you're going to manifest more working on, trying to. This is one thing I want you all to really get, and I think people don't get this enough. Because we've been taught in society, right? Like 1 + 1 = 2. Like you think logically, you have to work hard on something. but you only have to work hard on something. I know you didn't say hard in the word, but to me, work implies it's hard. It's challenging. Don't know, maybe that word doesn't mean that for you, and very well working on could be, but working on still implies that you're not that person now. So you're going to continue to work on, even if it's not working hard and it's just working on, you're still working on becoming that person. So by embodying a version of you that's working on self-concept, you're going to continuously work on self-concept because that's who you're being. You're literally manifesting what you are declaring in that moment. You are declaring, I am working on this, and SP is hot and cold. So we need to drop the story of them being hot and cold. Also drop, right, the back and forth, or sometimes it's even just getting triggered, which is literally the same thing. You need to create a new self-concept, or embody a new self-concept where you don't waver, right? Where you feel more confident, more secure, more trusting. Because when people are back and forth, they're not trusting in who they are. They're not trusting in the law. They're wavering. They're going back to their old identity, their old sense of self. So that's perfectly normal. I'm not saying that what you're going through isn't, but it's about making the decision and sticking to it. And even if you waver, it doesn't matter. It's just about coming back to it. Does that make sense? So this is just about making the same choice over and over again. Manifesting is no different than, let's say you're on a diet, right? And I mean, yes, you can manifest losing weight without a diet, but I'm just using this for example's sake, right? If you're on a diet and you know that eating keto, we'll just say hypothetically, because a lot of people like keto, right? Where you're eating mostly meat and veggies is gonna help you lose, let's say 50 pounds, right? Like let's say your goal is to lose, or 30 pounds. Let's not make it that big. Not that 50 is big and 30 isn't different, but for example's sake, you're on a keto diet and you know that by eating the ketogenic diet, you're going to lose 30 pounds in about 12 weeks or so. We're just saying hypothetically, okay? And it's the same thing, right? Like on the ketogenic diet, you make a choice. I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to do it for the 12 weeks. I'm going to lose the weight. And then after that, I'm going to have to implement this as a lifestyle. Like, this is going to have to be part of who I am. So you're the person who's losing weight using the ketogenic diet. So, when it comes to meals or the way you think, it's the same thing, right? You make the choice to eat a ketogenic meal, right? You're going to have maybe some chicken with some, with some peas and something else. Like maybe, I'm not really maybe some peas and maybe some broccoli and some chicken, right? That's your dinner. And you're going to eat that. And for, that's your lunch. And maybe for breakfast, you have, 2 poached eggs with some avocado and potatoes. Let's just say that's your carb, right? Because I know when you're on a ketogenic diet, you can't eat a lot of carbs. Every time you're choosing a ketogenic, meal, you're choosing to go to that reality. You're choosing to lose those 30 pounds. While this is 3-day logical thinking or 3D logical thinking, it's the same thing when it comes to your manifestation. You need to choose the same thing. Right, if I'm identifying as the person who's now 30 pounds lighter and I need the ketogenic diet to embody that, to be that, I need to eat a ketogenic meal anytime I need to eat. Same thing, when you're thinking, you need to be that person, you need to choose to be that person. And even if you have an apple, right? Like if you're on a ketogenic diet and you decide to have a bag of chips, you're not going to beat yourself up. You're going to be like, okay, maybe this has, I don't know how many carbs you can eat in a day, 40 grams or whatever. This was 25 grams of carbs. Now I've only got 15 left for the day, right? You're gonna catch yourself in that moment. That was probably not a good analogy, but you get what I'm saying. You make the choice over and over and over again. So it's not about if you have an off moment or if you get triggered. It's about making the choice and coming back to it. People that succeed on diets or on, working out or changing anything in their lives, it's about consistency. Even a new habit, let's say you only brush your teeth once a day versus now you want to brush them twice a day. You just have to continually do it, and then eventually you'll become that person. It becomes automatic for you. The same thing with your reality. Things become automatic when you choose to return to it. So it's just about making the choice and then continually coming back to that version of you and creating that new version in your reality. Okay. So, and then drop this belief that it's work. You never want to, and I know some coaches will tell you that it's okay to use certain words, maybe in their reality, right? I'm very literal. And I do believe that you can use the words I'm starting to, I'm now becoming, because that's still implying that you're becoming the person. Nothing wrong with using those words, okay? Or I'm becoming, I'm starting to, something, if you're using a word that's implying that you're becoming, that's okay. Now trying, right, working on, that implies that you're not that person. Because the problem is, if you're working on your self-concept, right, and you have the hot and cold SP, you're going to keep, and you keep engaging in those stories, you're going to keep having the hot and cold SP, and you're going to keep working on your self-concept. There is nothing to work on. Literally nothing needs to happen other than you shifting to that identity and just embodying it, and it will happen. Work is not needed. You're God. God doesn't need to work on anything. God doesn't need to try. Things aren't hard for God. God doesn't need, do you see what I'm saying? It's about being more, just choosing in that and coming back to it. Okay. All right. I saw another message. Let me look. Okay. Sister, I affirm happily married my SP. I visualize SP with my marriage anniversary, but 3D, okay, 3D SP rejected me up with third party. How manifest, sister? Okay. So Poana, thanks for coming on. So here's the thing. Just because, okay, so a lot of you will say, here's the thing. You never should, most likely, and this is just the vibe I'm getting from the comment, right? Are you really embodying being that new version of you? Because the new version of you, it's effortless, it's easy, it just comes to you. And I know a lot of people are like, well, how are things going to happen in my 3D reality if I'm not making movements, if I'm not making choices, if I'm not making things happen? You don't need to make anything happen, okay? A lot of people make this mistake. They'll live in the end a little bit, and then they go and try to make things happen. Or go and reach out to their SP because they're afraid that they won't get what they want, or they think that they've been living in the end, but they haven't, okay? Any bridge of incidents or any, let's call it inspired action you're going to take is very natural and effortless. It's not going to feel heavy. It's not going to feel confusing. You're going to know, like, okay, like this is the next move I need to make. It's always best to just let things unfold. A lot of people oftentimes haven't really embodied the state. Things will just move around. Like usually SP will reach out to you, or maybe you'll run into each other, or maybe you'll remember that you left your, I don't know, grandma's sweater at their house. It's one of those things. Do you see what I'm saying? It comes out of nowhere. Now, if you're trying to live in the end, right? That means you're not living in the end. And you're sitting here and planning everything, then you're not really that person. The version of you that's with them doesn't have to plan anything, doesn't have to like force things to happen. So if SP hasn't conformed, you haven't shifted the reality. Most likely you are not making inspired action, right? Like you're not acting from being that version yet. You haven't shifted. You haven't embodied that state yet. So you need to see where you need to pay attention to, am I really living in the end? Am I really embodying this new version of me? Or am I going back and constantly questioning it? It's very possible that you were trying to live in the end, right? Like you were probably trying to embody a new state, but you hadn't shifted yet. Perhaps you were still thinking, where's the third party? Are they still together? Is he really gonna accept me when I call him? And I don't know the whole story, Helena, but obviously to some extent, something of those things something to that extent is going on there, right? Like either you haven't fully embodied that state, or you never really embodied the state. I don't know, but remember, everything's showing up. It's not a good or bad thing. It just means you haven't shifted yet, and that's okay. You persist until it does, but meanwhile, until that happens, I don't suggest you make any movement unless it's from inspired action. And inspired action, when you're in the end, when you're in that new version of you, will just come naturally and effortless. Like you won't have to plan it, okay? Makes sense. What helps? Persist, affirm more, to refrain my thoughts and stories, to be more certain. What do you mean, affirm, to retrain my thoughts? Makes sense. What helps? Persist, affirm more, to retrain my thoughts. Why do you think you have to retrain your thoughts? Okay, so I get it. Like, here's the thing. I know what it's like to think like you have to do X, Y, Z to get, right? We believe 1 + 1 = 2. I'm going to use this example a million times over because it's simple, right? In math, we're taught 1 + 1 = 2. So you're thinking I have to do 1 + 1 to get what I want. You just have to embody the new state, and that it needs to become your new predominant state. That's it. Nothing else is required. You just need to shift, and then you have to understand who you truly are. You have to understand that you're one with everything and come from your I amness. And I know a lot of you will be like, well, but I have to like persist. I do have to reprogram my mind. Yes, you do have to come back to it, but why do you think you need to refrain your thoughts? If you think you need to refrain your thoughts, then you're probably having thoughts that are triggering, or you're going back to the old story. Do you see what I'm saying? Make sense, persist, affirm more, to refrain my thoughts. Or retrain, not reframe. Retrain my thoughts. Why do you think you need to retrain your thoughts? You just need to choose different thoughts, and you just need to, here's the thing. If we believe we need to train our brains, then it's going to be challenging. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you are, in essence, you are choosing a different reality, and it does take repetition sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you and sit here and say it doesn't, but drop that word out of your vocabulary. If you're thinking you need to retrain your mind, that there's the implication that your brain isn't already trained. You're not manifesting from the past, you're manifesting from the now. The past, here's one thing I want you guys all to understand. Your past does not affect you, only if you think it affects you. So you're manifesting from this very moment. This is why, like, what has happened to you, what hasn't happened to you, what you've revised, what you haven't revised is kind of irrelevant unless it's still staying with you. The only reason things are limited or you have limiting beliefs about certain things is because of the past memories in your brain, right? Or the things you're holding on to. Because there are people that have been through things, but they don't hold on to them. They don't believe that's part of their identity. Now, if you're believing I'm having to do all these things in order to get X, then you're going to have to do all these things. Stop believing that you have to retrain your thoughts and beliefs or stories, right? Just start believing, no, I just have to choose this and stick with it, and it'll happen. It's as easy, okay, you know how you watch Netflix or Hulu, or everything's digital now, right? Like, everybody watches TV online, right? If I'm going through, let's say, I'm trying to think of a show I like to watch. Okay, if I go to HBO, I do watch, I'm kind of nerdy, but like, you guys know Sex and the City. Sex and the City has now become Just Like That. And Carrie's now dating Big. Oh, not Big anymore. She's dating Aiden, okay? So yesterday, when I got home, I was at the beach. I had a beach day yesterday, and plus I had other things going on, but regardless of the situation, I came home yesterday. I sat on my couch after I was done with a million things, and I remember being like, oh, Just Like That came out with a new episode, and I was excited. So I turned on my TV computer. My brain is not computing this morning. I don't know why, and I shouldn't affirm that because then my brain will get stuck. Remember, we're literally who we're being, right? So my brain's working perfectly right now. I sat down at the couch. I said, "Oh my God, I want to watch Just Like That." So I turned on my TV. I went into the HBO app. I found Just Like That, and I clicked on it. There was a commercial for a second, right? And then it popped on. I was able to watch the show. That's how your reality is too. You're excited to do something. You're excited about your desire. You sit down, you choose it, and it'll pop up. I'm telling you, it's that simple. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, but it's not that simple, Maria. I'm having a hard time. But that's because you're believing you're having a hard time. And you're choosing that identity, and you're manifesting from that state of consciousness. Choosing a new reality is just as easy as sitting on a couch and selecting a show on HBO or Netflix or Hulu. Like, let's say I want to watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians, right? Like, I don't really watch that show, but I would jump on my couch. I would have the desire to do it. I would go into the Hulu app, right? Your technique. Let's call the app, it's your technique. I would choose Kardashians and then it would start playing, right? And I'm watching it. It's in my reality. Granted, it's on a TV screen, but it's the same thing. That's how your 3D reality works. And I know a lot of you, here's the thing, the simplicity, the idea that it's this simple or simplistic is hard to wrap your brain around. It took me a while too. It was like, but that doesn't make sense, but it is hard and people struggle. Yeah, because they struggle with their whole old story. They're being the version of them that's struggling. Listen, there are states of consciousness that feel heavier, that can feel harder to shift out of, but that's only because of your belief system. You always have the choice to dump it. Guys, you're carrying, here's one thing I want you to understand, okay? Have you ever heard the term like baggage? Like, right? Like, oh, she's got a lot of baggage, he's got a lot of baggage. People say this usually when they're dating, right? Like, I don't want to date Brian, he's divorced. I don't want to date Kimberly, she's got 2 kids. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with dating someone with kids. That's not what I'm saying, okay? We're just saying people say this about people when they think they have baggage, okay? Or, Julie lost, I don't know, both of her parents and she's in her 20s and she's a hot mess. She's got a lot of baggage. This person is an addict. And I don't know, they've gone through all these horrific things. They've got a lot of baggage, right? We have this belief that we have baggage, or people, ourselves or other people have baggage. Baggage is nothing more than limiting beliefs that you're carrying. It's invisible, right? What does baggage imply? It's like a huge suitcase. A baggage is a suitcase with emotional turmoil or whatever, right? That's how it is for you guys too. The stories that you believe about yourself comes with baggage. It comes with bullshit. You're carrying around you're carrying around baggage for no reason. Only because you think you have baggage. Limiting beliefs are a lot like baggage. Your limitations, what you think is not possible for you, is literally like unconscious baggage that you're carrying around. At any choice, you have the choice to drop the baggage and just move about your life by being a different person. Do you see what I'm saying? You're carrying around imaginary baggage. You just are. Everyone is, to some extent. We all are. Most people are. People that are not conscious and don't know that they're creating everything in their life. Some people are in their own hells, and some of you are, and I get it. I've been there. Like, I'm not saying that when you're in the state, it can't be challenging. And I'm not saying not validate your feelings. All I'm saying is the reason that you think it's a certain way is because of the emotional BS baggage that you're carrying around. Your limiting beliefs are in a bag and you're carrying them around with you. And you have the choice to drop that bag at any time. Anytime. You don't need to continue to carry this baggage. You don't need to continue to carry these limiting beliefs. You don't need to continue to do this shit to yourself anymore. You have the choice at any moment. Okay, so I heard this last night, but I already know this. Like, here's the thing. I can hear things a million times, and sometimes it's brilliant when I hear it, because even I listen to certain things to stay in the state, but like, that doesn't mean I listen to it 24/7. I know who I am, right? Like, I know I am God. Some of you may not identify as I am God, or you might call yourself the creator, one with God. It honestly doesn't matter. Some people will tell you, oh, if you don't know you're God, you can't manifest. Bullshit. We're doing it 24/7. It's not something you can turn off, okay? So you are the embodiment of like the resurrection of Jesus. Like, and I'm not trying to come from a Christian standpoint, but you in your own life are the Messiah or the second coming. You are a child of God. And I'm not going after, there's actually a cult called the Children of God, not identifying with that. So, throw that out if that's what you're thinking. What I'm trying to explain to you is you are God, and everybody in your reality is God. That doesn't mean that they can reject what you are, consciously manifesting, but everyone in your reality is God, and everyone wants to be what you want them to be. And the reason they're being the way they are, or a version you don't want them to be, is because that's who you believe they are. And then you probably have some beliefs in your self-concept about yourself, and that's why they're treating you that way. Maybe you're the person that always gets rejected or abandoned, right? You need to look at this from, if you understand that everyone is you push out and everyone is a mirror, what does that actually mean? That means that your beliefs, right, are reflected back to you by the people in your reality based off of who you believe you are. You're not changing other people, you're changing yourself. That's a whole other topic. Like, a lot of people are thinking they're changing their SP or they're changing the person next to them. You're not doing any of that. You're not doing any of that. You're just changing yourself. And I know I laughed for a second, but like, it's almost comical. Like, when you really think about it, how difficult we make this when it doesn't need to be. This journey doesn't need to be difficult. This process doesn't need to be difficult. It doesn't need to be challenging. It's only because you think it is. So many of you will be like, but this circumstance is going on, but this circumstance is going on. But it doesn't matter what's going on. What matters is if you drop that story, and most people have those circumstances because they won't drop them. Those are their comfort blanket. And some people are even comfortable having those circumstances there. A lot of you will tell me, but I want this instead. Do you really? Because you're not dropping that story. And this isn't to attack anyone or make someone feel bad for where they're at. That's okay, but you always have a choice. Everything is a choice. So let me read. I think there's a little bit more. Thank you. How do I get past thinking that he will not leave the 3P? Because of the baby. I don't believe he wants to be with her, but she got pregnant very quickly after meeting him. Okay, Sally, you have a couple different options here. Why even accept the fact that there's a baby? You don't have to. You can revise that you guys have always been together. What baby? You can reject it if you want to, or if you're okay with there being a baby, right? Like, because he's going to be tied to this woman, not that that matters. You can still get him back, but here's the thing, guys, your answer is always in your question. How do I get past the thinking that he'll not leave the 3P? So you have a belief that he won't leave the 3P because of the baby, right? Or because they have a child together. Why not just believe that you have to change your beliefs about yourself, and you have to change your beliefs about him, obviously, both, right? So you most likely have a self-concept where you don't get what you want, or you get rejected, or they choose other people over you. So getting past that thinking is, number one, stop giving the third party so much priority. People leave people with children all the time. Or you could just imagine that the child's not there either. There's so many ways to go about this. The most important thing is becoming the person that's always chosen, right? Becoming the person that is always loved unconditionally, that is prioritized, that's wanted, that's good enough. And just trusting that they love you enough to do that for you, or to show up that way. But if you're continually staying in the story of, there's a 3P and there's a baby and he's choosing the baby, then you're going to get more of that, my love. Like, I get where you're coming from, and I know you get past that thinking by being the person who knows who they truly are, and then embodying a different version of you. From the current state that you're in right now, you're not going to be able to manifest them. So you're going to need to shift. That doesn't mean you can't manifest them. Really listen, because some people will be like, what do you mean I can't manifest them? You can't manifest them from that story, right? Or from that identity. So become the person who can manifest them. Become the version of you that's good enough, that's chosen, that's wanted. It always starts with self first, and then they reflect that back to you. So you need to become the person that they want to be with. The version of them that they're already in a relationship with. That doesn't matter, like, okay, so they got that girl knocked up. That doesn't mean that someone's stuck there forever. For a lot of women, I've noticed that a lot of women think that if a child's involved, that like it's done, like they're never coming back. But that's just a belief you have. You probably believe that he's a very loyal father, or that he would never leave his child behind. That's great to have those beliefs, but you need to change those beliefs, like that it doesn't matter that he has a child with this woman because he loves you, he wants you, and then become the woman that's loved, that's chosen, that's wanted. that's confident. Yeah, you just need to drop that story, my love. You're creating that reality for yourself because you feel insecure and you're worried that the baby is like getting in the way. That's what's really going on there. You feel not good enough, and then you also feel like, oh, now there's this obstacle. It's impossible, right? But it's not impossible. It's only challenging in that moment and because of your belief system, because what you believe about the situation. Sister about meaning affirming. Sister, how fast manifests SP? Okay, so here's the thing. How fast can you manifest your... Okay, so thought... I don't know what you mean by sister. Okay, so Poan, do me a favor. Be a little bit... If you could write it a little bit more clearly, because I don't understand what you mean by that, right? And then the other thing I was going to say... How fast you manifest depends on if you're able to embody that state. Plus, if you're having to manifest something fast, then you're doing it from a place of, what's that word called? Panic. When people come to me and they're like, I need this fast. I need this now. I need this tomorrow. That's fine. Listen, you can manifest anything on a timeline. I've done it too. It doesn't mean you can't do it. But you're putting extra stress on yourself. And if that date comes and you haven't done it, you're going to feel like shit. But also by saying I need it by this time or I need it fast, that implies you don't have it. Do you see what I'm saying? You're not being the person who has it. The one thing I want you to understand when thinking about what you want to manifest or what you're trying to embody, right? Because when you're embodying a new state of consciousness, we usually use a technique. Affirming, scripting, inner conversations to help shift us and get us there, right? The frequency of how often you go back to it is usually what makes you to become that person. Once you become that 51% of the time or more, it will show up in your reality. When you are declaring it, right? Whenever you're using that technique, you're declaring it. I'm now this person who's with SP, who's in love, who's happy, who has everything that they want. Here's the thing. A lot of people, I think, try too many things and then they become the person trying to manifest and then they continuously become the person that's trying to manifest. And while it's okay to do techniques, there's nothing wrong with that. Stop trying to do so many things too. Make it simple for yourself. I think a lot of us overcomplicate, and I've been there. And here's one thing I want you guys to know. I'm never knocking you for where you're at. I completely 1000% know what it's like to be in that state. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to doubt myself. I know what it's like to feel like nothing's changing and that you're stuck in a reality that just sucks. It happens to the best of us. It happens to a lot of people. But that's only because you're identifying as that person. And it feels limiting and it feels like you're trapped and you're like in jail because that's your identity. You just need to become a new you. The same thing for the those of you that want to manifest your SP or want to have, less of the hot and cold relationship or, Sally, with your specific situation, right? You're like, there's a 3P. I get it. And I know it sucks, right? Like when you're in that reality and you see the 3P, it's just like, I haven't unfortunately had to deal with like the baby situation ever with anyone I've cared about. There was one time when I was younger that one of my friends ended up dating my exes and I was livid when supposedly she was pregnant, okay? But let me tell you something about that, Sally. Back then, I didn't know squat shit about manifesting, and I've told this story a few times, okay? So this person lived internationally, but we were dating for over a year, and we broke up at one point. We stopped talking, but I still had feelings for him for a while. And when I found out they were dating, I was livid. I had shitty self-concept back then, horrible, like the worst self-concept. And this is why, like, I would end up in these 3P situations, like, quite often. Like, literally, I remember on my name's day in Greece one year, he was making out with his ex-girlfriend in front of me. Like, he came to a party that I invited him to, my ex-boyfriend, and then he made out with his ex-girlfriend in front of me. Okay? You want to talk about some shitty self-concept in the past. Not now, obviously. I was really young when this happened, by the way. I was like a teenager. So he shows up with her, whatever. The same guy, a few years later, started reaching out to me. We started talking, and then I find out he's dating my friend. I would say more of an acquaintance. Me and her were never super close, but whatever. She was still a friend to some extent, not a close friend. And then I find out she's pregnant. Literally my heart dropped into my stomach. I was sick to my stomach. I was pissed off. But I had a belief, and this is not a good belief to have about anyone, but I held the identity because she got around. We'll just say she got around, okay? Like, she just was always dating and always, she had a long-term boyfriend for a long time, and she was always cheating on him. And she was the kind of girl that used sex to get close to men because she had shitty self-concept herself, okay? So she was always sleeping around, like always sleeping around. So I had a belief, hey, she's a hoe. She's lying. She's just saying this to like snag him. There's no baby. I just kept believing. Because when I heard that there was a baby, I was pissed. I was livid. And I was just like, no, there's no baby. What baby? There is no baby. But I did not know that I was manifesting it, right? Like, I had this hardcore belief that she was lying and that she was not pregnant or it wasn't his. I was like, bullshit, it's his kid. This girl's a hoe. Like, she would just say this to anybody. And I'm like, of all the guys she could go for, my boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, bitch. You know, like, I was mad at the time. So what did I do? I just persisted in this belief that she was a lying, not quality girl. And I was like, she's a lying hoe. That's what I believed, right? And like I said, I don't judge women like that now, not at all. But like back then, when I was younger, I was just like, she's a lying skank. Like, this girl's a liar. What happened? Later on, I find out there's no baby. I believed that for less than a few weeks. Turns out later, there's no baby. There was no baby. Baby was bye-bye. The way the baby went away doesn't really matter. It's irrelevant for the story. But I kept believing that there was no baby and that she was lying. And my cousin swore that there were papers originally and that there was a baby. Because I chose to believe that it was a lie and there was never a baby, the baby went bye-bye. At some point in my reality, she was pregnant, this friend acquaintance, right? With my ex-boyfriend's baby, who at the time would have been qualified as an SP, I guess, to some extent, right? But because I chose to believe that there was no baby and that she was, I had also, like I said, poor beliefs about her. This isn't about tearing any women down. I just believe she was not trustworthy and just got around. I was like, bullshit, it's his baby, and there's no baby. I don't believe it. I thought she was lying, and I'm like, there's no baby. And then eventually there was no baby. I manifested no baby in my reality. And like, I've gotten rid of babies without even knowing I was doing it at the time. That's what I'm trying to say. You are limitless. I mean, when I did it back then, it was totally a mistake. I would never wish that on anyone to, for the baby not to be around. But like, I remember my cousin being like, oh yeah, she's not pregnant anymore. And I'm like, I knew it. She lied. And my cousin's like, I don't think she lied. And I'm like, I know she lied. Bullshit. Because how do you go from being pregnant to but not being pregnant? Now, what actually happened in between, I don't 100% know. Did she have a miscarriage? Maybe. I don't know. I didn't ask those questions. Did she possibly, maybe in one reality, really was pregnant, and then I jumped to a reality where she was lying? Could have been that too. I didn't know much about manifesting back then, and I can't exactly tell you the thought process that I had, but I can tell you, I believed she was lying. That, you can literally do that too. You can say that child is not your SP's. Okay, because here's the thing. If you don't want to make the child disappear, why not just believe that's not his child? Be like, that is not his kid biologically. She's lying. And then boom, third party's baby's gone, right? Like, he's not going to raise a child that's not his. If you want, you have that choice too. People have done it. I'm telling you, you can do anything in your reality. If it makes you feel better to say that's someone else's child, then do that. She could have very well cheated on him because in a parallel reality, she could have slept with many men and not known whose baby that was. Or it could have been her ex's baby. And maybe she lied to your SP. Why not just believe she lied to my SP? That's not his baby. That's someone else's. You have that choice, okay? Like, and I know some people would be like, well, that's unethical. Well, it's your reality. Here's the thing. That's harming someone. You're just, saying it's someone else's kid. Or you can just revise it. Listen, I'm not saying you have to do that. If you're okay with it, but those are always options. People don't talk about this, and I don't know why. You can literally change it to anything. Like, I haven't seen anyone talk about like changing the baby daddy in a long time. I think I had seen it years ago, like when I was very new to this, when someone had a third party baby, and one of the girls was like, why not just say it's someone else's baby? It's not theirs. And I was like, that's genius. Just because the woman could have slept with someone else. It could have been her ex's baby, or someone else she slept with. Or it could be a sperm donor's baby. You don't know, right? Just be like, it's not his baby. And because it's not his baby, he doesn't want to be with her anymore. Or you could just believe there's no baby. There's different ways to go about this, okay? You're welcome, Sally. I've manifested so many amazing things. So I totally believe in manifestation. I've got to remember that I created this situation. Here's the thing. So it's up to me to uncreate the situation. I know 1000%. It all stems from you. Here's another thing I want you guys to remember, okay? So this will happen a lot, and it happens to the best of us. Right? You forget who you are. But yes, everything starts with you. There is nobody else. And the thing is, this isn't about beating ourselves up, okay? The worst thing you could do is blame and shame yourself. Feel guilty. Oh, I've let all this time pass by. Oh God, I used to do that to myself. I was the queen of it. Feel guilty, feel bad, feel ashamed. That only keeps you stuck in a reality where you feel guilty and ashamed that you're not getting what you want or feeling regret. Don't do that to yourself. You're so much better than that. And you deserve better than that. You are God and you are perfect. Okay, maybe you felt bad about something 5 minutes ago, or maybe you feel guilty that you created something that you didn't like, but you didn't mean to create it. You think if people really knew who they truly were, they'd be creating all these crappy circumstances for themselves? No, right? But it takes time too to grasp this and really understand that it's all pour at you. And a lot of times we default to blaming other people, or blaming society, or blaming the weather, or blaming politics, or blaming the government. There's been times where I'm like, oh, why do they put such shit in our food? And then I'm like, wait, it all starts for me. I could be in a reality where they don't do that stuff, so why not persist in that, right? It's always easy to point the shame finger at someone, oh, shame on you, you did this. And when you do let's just call it take responsibility. Taking responsibility for your life isn't a bad thing, but that doesn't mean we guilt ourselves. Take responsibility for what you created. Okay, I'm not in the reality I want to be in. Okay, I can create a way better reality. I can create different things. Wonderful. What does that mean? That means that I have endless opportunities to change that. Remember, every second of every moment is a new opportunity. Time is irrelevant. None of this is real. None of this is real. We think it's real, but it's not. It is not, my lovelies. Okay, what other questions do you guys have for me? Because I'm gonna have to jump off in a few minutes because I have a client shortly that I need to get to. I think people were confused by the live. Oh man, that's okay. That doesn't matter. How is everybody liking this time anyway? Is it working for everybody? Is it not working? I was thinking Fridays were a good idea for now. It is also summer. I wanted to do a time early enough where people in Europe can jump on, right? Which my very first person on here was from Lithuania. Yeah, I think it's a good time. Okay. I like the idea, sister only affirm to manifest SP. No. Who said that you only have to affirm? Said who? What do you mean only affirm? Only affirm that you're together, yes. Or that you're that version of you, but you can script, you can have inner conversations, you can visualize. There's different techniques. You can meditate and get into like a beautiful state of you guys being together. It depends. There's different techniques you can use, or you can just trust that you're already together and you're in that reality. A lot of you realize that if you just chose to believe that you're together now, and chose yourself, like it would pop up. I'm telling you, this doesn't have to be complicated. And I get it. It's hard to wrap your mind around this being this simple. I remember hearing coaches talk about this like back in the day and being like, but that doesn't make sense. But a lot of those coaches that said it was simple also complicated it. You got to do this and you got to do that. It's just about being a new version of you. Be the version of you that can manifest it in the first place, meaning have all those qualities that you need, right? Being confident, being secure, being safe, being irreplaceable, good enough, and then embody the version of you that has it through a technique. And there's multiple techniques that you can use to do this. I like the idea to change it not being his. Then do it. Persist in a reality where it's not his. I mean, like I said, people sleep with people all the time. It is very, very possible that she just believes she cheated on him. Or you can believe she got pregnant with the baby before they met. I mean, if she got pregnant right after they met, that sounds sus to me. Right? Suspicious, like that's suspicious. Literally, you can choose anything you want. You are limitless. Don't ever doubt yourself or think that you can't do certain things, okay? All right, I'm gonna let everyone go because I do have to jump on a call in literally 3 minutes. I will repeat this next week. I may change the time. I may do it a little bit later. I think 11 a.m. might be a little too early for people. Okay, much love to you guys and talk to you soon.